We're diving deep into critical connection between your business success and your personal well-being, personal health with Rion Westfall, creator of Own Your Revenue program. This episode is for career-driven men that are juggling the real life of the 40s. We've got career, we've got families, we have responsibilities, there's life stress, pressures, and a lot of other things happening in this time frame. So challenges to be expected, and we have to overcome it. We'll be talking over some of the concepts about change your own mindset. That's one of the undertones, is own your mindset. And Rion shares powerful insights as to why 95% of your life's decisions are subconscious and how you can actively train your mind for success. So we're going into mindset today, guys. And we'll go through a lot of different things that are relevant to busyness of life, career. And I hope that you are ready for this ride. Grab a pen and paper. Welcome to Driven for Health, episode 94. Rion, welcome to the show.
Awesome, Brian. Thank you so much. It's an awesome pleasure to be here and amongst all those listening.
Excellent. And let's get to it. If we could say one powerful takeaway that we need the guys to hear and listen into today, what would that be?
The one powerful takeaway I would say is, often we can't tell which levers in life are actually going to advance our progress. So being able to tactically hunt the right patterns in our life to find those levers are only going to expedite our progress in, weeks and months as opposed to years of grinding.
Oh, I totally resonate with that. For me, being a health, nutrition, fitness, lifestyle, I'm looking at the main levers of health. Well, nutrition, right? That's a huge one that most people don't know and understand. As soon as you start pulling on it, magic happens all of a sudden. We don't have to do weird diets or GLP-1s or get on the peptide train or anything like that. We can just make better decisions and be informed about those. But even in, say, my business, I had one lever I was yanking on super hard for years, and it worked out. It was like a slot machine. I'd pull it and out came money. And now all of a sudden it just, I don't know, the casino saw I was winning too much and they changed the computer program because, guys, if you're gambling at casinos, yeah, it's a software. Like you're not gonna win. Okay, goodness sakes. But so it's changed, and I had to find other levers, and I am hunting like crazy to pull on those things. And so that this all resonates even with life, connecting with my 4 kids differently as they grow and age. One story, and then we'll turn it back over. My wife went with my second son Everett to New York City Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Saturday, Sunday, Monday. I just picked them up yesterday, and I tried to ask my son Everett what they did. What was his favorite part? And he couldn't be bothered. He was too busy. I don't know what, sitting in the back of the car. It's like, oh, how do I connect with him when he's just being an angsty teenager? And so I am gonna have a little conversation like, hey, I spent about 4 hours getting you tuned from the airport and a couple $100 for you to go have a really good time with your mom. At the very least, you can tell me what did you enjoy most about
what
this
happened.
Yeah. So you have kids too, right?
Yep, I've got 4 kids. My oldest is actually just graduated last year. He's down in Brazil. He's serving a 2-year mission down there. And then I've got 1 in high school and 1 in middle school and 1 at the end of elementary. So 3 boys, 1 girl.
Yeah, me too. 3 boys. My youngest is a girl, and yeah, you're in the thick of it too. Except you have 1 out of the house already, and my wife's already ready.
It starts to change the mentality, or you start thinking differently.
Yeah, totally. According to my wife Amber, he's already gone. Right. He's a sophomore. We still got a little more time, but not too much. Oh my God. So mindset was a big undertone of what we're going to be talking about. We had a pre-call interview, and that was a strong thing that you can totally bring to the guys listening in. And let's start with family, with the mindset there. how do we start to find these, say, hunting patterns of behavior and habits and routines that we can teach our kids to be able to be fruitful? I know, say, your daughter, she's a state champ, and so she's super driven. So let's jump into some of that with her and then the other kids.
Absolutely. There's, as parents, just like what you pointed out, we don't know how the kids are going to be one day to the next,
Right.
even sometimes amongst our spouses, right? So, and
Right.
ourselves, if we're honest with each other, we're like, hey, I woke up today and
Right.
it just wasn't hitting right, whatever the case is. But there are, patterns are found everywhere. And whether it's personal life, whether it's business life, whether it's family life, relationships, yes, my program, as you pointed out, I call it Own Your Revenue because yes, that's what we do for business.
Right.
But it's about taking control of that revenue, and in life, that involves things like own your mindset, own your time, own your relationships, own your, there's there
Mhm.
you can keep going on that list, right? And as you're sitting here talking about kids, I mean, again, I've got 4 and they vary. I mean, even though familial wise, with our family aspects, we've got certain things that we like as a family. But, I've got one kid that's my oldest. He really loves music and he'll get up and he'll sing, and he taught himself to play the guitar, and he can sit down in the piano and he can
Yeah.
just, hear something, and he'll go and he'll start tinkering, and all of a sudden he's playing the music and you're just like, what
Oh,
the heck?
wow. That's awesome.
And then my third son, he's like, I don't want anything to do with it. Like, don't even, but
Right.
all I want to do is play ball, and so we have these differences in these human beings that are growing up, and they're going through all the things they're going through. But I find that yes, the patterns that we allow ourselves to to do as a family, there are certain things that if we do correctly, and you're about health and regularity, and you know very well that consistency in
Yeah.
something is better than inconsistency at everything.
Agreed.
And so as we are consistent with, I know with our family, hey, yeah, we wake up, we've got early athletics. Sometimes the kids have to leave at, they have to leave at 6:15, 6 o'clock to go to athletics. And so we've made a point in our life that, hey, we get up and we do 15 minutes of family, what we call scripture study, right?
Yep.
Where we're just doing, hey, we got 15 minutes and we do it. And sometimes that 15 minutes became 5 because someone didn't get up or something like that.
Oh, yeah. The
You
morning
know,
routine.
it's life, but in the end, it's those patterns that we develop, that consistency
Right.
in life, that the kids and the people around us, I mean, we're talking about family in this case, but people around us recognize patterns. They
Right.
recognize, I mean, that's one thing that is so easy for us to see. We can see patterns and we can spot them, but oftentimes we don't hunt for the right ones and identify them or quantify them as to, hey, is this one really moving the needle? Is it having the impact that I want it to have? Or how can I modify it so that it can have the impact that I want it to
Right.
have? And so, absolutely, 100% agree with that.
Oh yeah, hunting patterns. I see patterns, of course, in what I do because when you're a subject matter expert, like I am for health and you are for business, you know the roadway that they need to go, and we'll certainly talk about business here and strategy and owning the revenue part of a successful business because that is challenging in of itself. Like I want to provide a service to a certain person and and a product, and I need to get it to market and all this stuff. And there's a pattern behavior that will produce a viable outcome of a successful business. And if you just play that game, you will be successful. But if not, then you're gonna go through trials and tribulations a lot more than you need to. Now, for you, what's one mindset hack, story, something that you can talk to? Think of the out of shape Ryan that's just 30 pounds overweight, and the one habit that's helped you with your mindset to keep yourself on track for your specific goals, whether it be health, whether it be business, or for anything like that.
I will use an example that I had last night.
All
So
right. So this is fresh.
this is as fresh as it can be. My son, my third child, second son, he's in
Right.
eighth grade. So he's 13 years old, and last year he decided to try pole vaulting. Right.
Okay.
I've never pole vaulted. I've never been on a track field. Like I played lots
Yeah.
of sports, but I've never done that. And
Right.
so,
Right.
when you're starting to do that, you're starting to rely on that pole and learn the techniques and everything associated with pole vaulting. It's actually
Right.
really kind of cool. But here he is, and the last two track meets. Yeah, last night was our third track meet of the season, and the first two he got 7 feet. Good, he cleared it. 7.5 feet, he cleared it. 8 feet, he didn't hit it the first track meet. You get 3 tries at it. He didn't hit it the second track meet. So this track meet, our third track meet, he's going into it. He's like, I've got 8 feet. I've got 8 feet.
Right.
And
The
he had,
mindset.
yeah, and admittedly, he woke up today or yesterday, and it was a windy day. We had probably 10-15 mile an hour normal winds, which is usually
Right.
pretty windy when you're trying to launch your body up in the air.
Right.
And he literally was thinking, man, I'm only going to get 7.6 today. I'm only going to get 7.6.
Uh,
And we've been practicing this thing about mindset and about positivity and how you talk to yourself, because your body doesn't know any different, right? Your
right.
body
Yeah.
doesn't know.
Energy. Right. It's just
Your body,
energy.
it doesn't know if you're telling a joke about yourself or you're being realistic. It only hears it and it responds to it.
Right.
And so
Thousand percent agree.
yeah, so sure enough, he started telling himself, and there were three guys on the team, and he started telling another kid who's never cleared 8 feet, and they started talking positive to each other, just, hey, we're going to get 8, we're going to get 8, we're going to get 8. Both of them, my son gets up and he clears 8 feet, personal
Wow.
record. Boom, everybody's
Yay.
cheering. The other kid gets up, he clears it, and luckily enough, his pole ended up hitting it and knocked the bar off, but he was down on the ground. They actually called it a win. They actually gave it to him.
Okay.
and
Okay.
so and so both of them get 8 feet. And so now they're just excited. Hey, personal record, personal record. So
Right.
now, but hey, now you got to get up and you got to try 8.6. And so my son gets up and he tries it. First time, knocks it down. Second time, knocks it down. And he says, Dad, I just stayed confident. And his third time, his third last try, he clears 8.6. So a second
Wow. That's
personal
a
record. So,
big.
now he's going to 9 feet. I'm at like 9 feet. Like,
Oh
okay,
yeah.
that's and so
Starting to get up there.
yeah, yeah. And so, but here it is, and all of just the energy that comes with how you address yourself, right? There's never a there's never a lack for negative energy. I mean,
Our world is full of it, unfortunately.
every day. I mean, all you got to do is pick up a phone and scroll. All you got to do is talk to your neighbor. Someone is going to emit an immense load of negativity. It's
Right.
going to happen.
Right.
And so the mindset of just the positive conversation you have with yourself,
Right.
right? Being able to recognize frustration, being able to recognize just that negative feeling as you're thinking about something, and then just about face, just about face and shift and just start changing the conversation. No different than, I mean,
Right.
I find myself, I have these thoughts in my heads and I'm literally talking to myself. And my wife always
Yep.
catches me and she's like, why do you look upset? And I'm like, I'm not upset. I'm just thinking, right? It's just my thinking
Right.
face. I don't know what to call it. It's my thinking. And really, it's just me talking to me about something.
RTF, Ryan's thinking face. There you go. Just call it RTF.
RTF. I'm sorry, sweetie, RTF, And but yeah, when we do have those thinking faces, like understand, hey, that conversation we're having with our brain, just make it as if you were having a good conversation with somebody else and just guide it, let it flow.
Yes, totally. When I open up conversations with any person I've ever worked with in the last 15 years, first thing I always have to establish what went well. because people will dump on me. And it took me a few times to figure this out early on. I got 45 minutes into this one conversation one time, and I feel like I'm on my heels the whole time, defensive, trying to prove or justify or defend or whatever we were doing. But 45 some minutes in, they said, I lost 3 pounds this week. It's like, where did that not come out in the first minute? Why did you not lead with that? Because I'm over here. Okay, like, what are we doing? Like, how's this go? And we're doing just fine. For whatever we've talked about for the last 40 minutes, it doesn't even matter. You're down weight. We're moving in the right direction. This is great. Next time we talk, make sure you preface it in the beginning, the first 30 seconds. Brian, I did really good this week. I
What's the
lost
big
some
win
weight.
for the week or the day, right?
Right. Now, speaking of that, you talked and mentioned disappointment is relative to expectation. Let's expand upon it, because I have to reset people's expectations all the time, and so do you with your coaching and even being a parent and a husband, right? Expectations. So let's jump in. Disappointment is relative to expectation. Explain that.
I was we had I discovered this, and when I say discovered, meanings I learned and internalized it myself, right?
Yes, right,
It's a truth that existed. It's just I learned it here a few years ago.
right.
And it realized to me, and it dealt with a family relationship and whatnot, but it's a truth that is very, very, I mean, it's just like gravity. It's a law. I mean, it happens the case. And as I was looking at one of my family members, the the aspects of this constant weight of disappointment, right, that was being felt by this individual, and just continually, regardless of what she tried to do and how hard she
Right.
tried to work, and all the things that she was doing to do right by this other person, it just and this went on for years. I mean, years and years and years,
Mhm.
and driving this person to tears, years, and just over
Wow.
and over and over and over again. And as I pondered more on that and thinking, okay, why is this happen? I mean, by trait, by study, I'm a mechanical engineer, I'm business, so I'm very just pensive in that regards. I'm always
Right.
looking for, hey, why is this happening?
Where's the angle,
root
right?
root cause analysis, all this other
Right,
kind of stuff.
right.
And like, where is this coming from? Like, you're given, you're working your tail end off to support and all this stuff, and eventually it becomes almost as if they're people pleasing and just bowing down to this person, and then this person uses negative leverage on them to make them feel, and it's just this continual spiral. And I'm thinking, why is this happening, mentally? Why does this,
Right.
because you're not doing it. And that's when it dawned on me. It's like, this disappointment that you feel is based on unmet expectations. You have
Yep.
you have expectations for that individual. You expect that individual to act a certain way, to have a certain amount of honor, to have a certain amount of class, to
Yep.
have a certain amount of honesty. Whatever it is, you have an expectation of X.
Right.
And when that person, right, the disappointment comes is when that expectation is not met. Whatever degree. I mean, if we get close to it, we sometimes accept it, but if we're way far from it, that's where that disappointment really sets in.
Yeah.
And I was actually going through, I've got 3 boys, 1 girl, and I always joke, but at the same time, our family, we are evenly balanced. I mean, one girl, 3 boys, I mean, we're evenly balanced.
Right. Yep.
And my
Same.
daughter, as you mentioned, she's got 3 state championships in cheer and 2 state championships in soccer, so she's got
That's
5 so
amazing.
far. And
Right.
there
That's
is,
ridiculous.
yeah, I mean, like she's got rings for every finger. And but in her world, in the female cheer world, which I've never been exposed to until her, growing up in this world.
Right.
There's drama, right? There's just drama.
Yeah,
And
unfortunately.
unfortunately, but having learned that lesson about the connection between expectations and disappointments, because same thing would happen. She would come home and be disappointed and upset about this and disappointed. It's just that constant drama that's affecting you. And usually it's almost always negative, right? It's hardly ever positive in that regards.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And so, hey, how do we change that? Well, we can't control other people,
Nope.
but we can control our own behaviors.
Yes.
And what we do and what expectations we set with individuals, that's a behavior of ours. Right. And so when we learn to control that behavior, we're talking about levers. When we pull the lever of expectation, if someone is constantly not meeting a certain level of expectation, just like my son's example, hey, we're just going to lower the bar until they can get over it,
Right.
right? Until they can get over it. And then we'll work from there. Then we'll change our behaviors to make it become more. But that relationship, that fundamental truth is I mean, it applies to our personal families, it applies to our
Right.
employees and our teams, our business associates, our friends, whatever it is,
Our
that's a
spouses.
fun it's a fundamental principle.
Yeah.
And I have found as I have monitored my expectations, especially those that were constantly being, disappointed by because they weren't being met, as
Right.
I monitored and adjust those, I became happier,
Yes.
right? Not only the other individual, but I became happier because it simplified my life. It relieved a lot of that mental real estate that I was consumed with on just, you know, the energy consumed with dealing with those disappointments all the time. And when I can adjust that, my gosh, it just became happier. It becomes simpler. And life is a lot easier when you live that way.
I would agree. The especially expectations need to be in proper alignment with the efforts and also the inputs that you're receiving, because we're receiving so many inputs in our world on top of just the marketing and everyone trying to get our attention. But it's just like, wow, we have to have the right expectation. It's something that I always will talk about is you don't want to be met, your 40s or 50s don't want to be met with unmet expectations. You're like, wow, I was going to be a millionaire. I was going to rule the world and do this and whatever and have X amount in my bank account and driving this car and be living in this house. And those are external expectations that we can put for the American dream. And then you can be really disappointed if those aren't or have happened, regardless of however grand and great your life it could be. And you just walk around sad. But then that affects and impacts all the other relationships in your life, your spouse, your partner, your kids, your coworkers or employees or whatnot, because you're walking around like, I don't have this nice car or whatever, and it doesn't even matter sometimes. It's just like they all do the same thing, four wheels, and they get you places. But
You
whatever.
know, comparison, and
Oh yes,
usually we feel that way because we're comparing, right? But
right.
comparison is the thief of joy.
A
and
thousand
and
percent.
we hey, get over yourself, stop comparing yourself to other people or other, the
Right.
things that they have. And I go back to that old movie It's a Wonderful Life, right? When little Jimmy or whatever comes up and he's telling his dad, he says, did you see the neighbor's new car? And he's like, what, is our car not good enough? Just let it go, let it
Right.
go.
Right.
You
Right.
can't take it
Right.
with you.
Right. So let's take this expectation and shift it toward business now. And you had a really good story that you shared with me, and love to bring it back up. Someone at a very high level that has a lot of expectations, and how they were hot to trot to just go launch, and you had to slow things down because of mindset, because of expectations and all that. So let's jump into that story.
Yeah, I've got one of my clients. He's retired, just retired from the NFL. Spent 5 years in the NFL, and the day we started, that I started quote coaching him, was literally the day after he submitted his retirement resignation
Right.
letter. Right. And in those realms, anybody that's played athletics, I mean, I was football and baseball and college and all this other stuff, but once you get to a certain point, and especially when you get into like that's your entire life. You
It's
don't
your
know,
identity. Oh, an NFL
it's your
football player.
identity. It's
Everyone knows that.
I have a lifestyle that I've lived where I've maintained 6,000 calories every day, and I'm force eating, and just to maintain my
Right.
275 pounds, and this, and just all the things, and literally right now, boom, it's done. it,
Right.
it it's not
It's a
important anymore.
hard
The whole
shift.
training, and it's just a hard shift. And it's not like you can just pick up and just, hey, well, I'm gonna wait, I can't go to the next team. Like I'm done.
Right.
And
No more
this
football
individual,
unless I'm
yeah,
playing in the
just
backyard with my kids.
exactly. And in his case, his kids are 2 and 1, and so there's not a whole lot there to throw with.
Nope.
But part of that was, okay, well, I'm gonna do the business idea that I thought, that I've been thinking of for the last couple of years.
Right.
Okay, great. But you've never done it. You've never been an entrepreneur.
Right.
You've never
Right.
done those things.
You're an
Okay.
elite athlete, but in this domain, you're amateur.
Yeah, completely. And so, you know, I wrote down a question in preparation for this, and we'll probably touch on it on a few times. But the question I wrote was, would you compete? Whether this is a professional league, whether this was in the Olympics, wherever it is, would you compete without a coach?
Not at that
And
level.
I doubt that anyone honestly would say, yeah, I'd go and compete without a coach. Like, okay, maybe rec league when you're 9,
Weekend warrior.
weekend warrior, something like that. High school, college, professional, definitely. You would never, ever, ever entertain going into a competitive atmosphere without a coach.
Right.
And I asked myself the same question. Why do we do that in business? Why, as entrepreneurs, so many just go into entrepreneurship without a coach,
Right.
without a mentor, without someone to at least provide some form
Some
of guidance?
guidance. Yep. I've
Hey,
spent a couple zeros on coaching over the years. Quite a couple.
and the thing is, I mean, did they not expedite?
They
Right?
did. Yep.
They,
Some were better than others.
absolutely.
And one more recent one was more of a learning in a sense than the outcomes that I was expecting, right? We think of, say, business coach, there's a monetary aspect to the back end. And there was a lot of learning, a lot of back end. I didn't send an email for 10 years, and I've sent thousands of emails over in the last 18 months. So that's a
Right.
big difference. This podcast, there wasn't a podcast. There wasn't even a thought of a podcast. And now I'm almost, yeah, we're getting close to 100 now. So it was a huge learning, and my expectations were challenged quite a bit because of what I thought the outcome was going to be and what the outcome actually was. And there's other things that happened there, but ultimately, I learned a lot. I learned a
That's
lot.
and as I've been a couple months now. I mean, that was at the beginning of this year, so it was only a couple months ago that this retired player has started working with me. And before we can jump into, hey, here's the business, and here's how here's how you set it up, and here's how you do this, and these are the things you need to evaluate, and all that. Before we start getting into that aspect, there had to be that mindset
Yeah.
shift from going, hey, you were doing this, now you're going to be
NFL
doing that.
elite,
I I always go
top
back.
tier.
Exactly. I had to point one out, and since we're talking about sports, I played baseball, and I remember as I was growing up, I went into the Dodgers organization, and one of those was I was sitting there and at bat, and one coach came up to me. I don't even know who he was, and but when you're at a certain level, you just there's people watching all the time, right? I mean, they're all
Right.
scouts all over the place and coaching. They're always watching.
Right.
And he comes up to me and he looks at me and he says, "Radial deviation."
Huh?
What you talking to me? Like, what the heck is radial deviation? Like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And
Right.
he starts to explain it to me, and it's for hitters. And when you're at bat, basically, if you're taking your wrist,
So
if you cock it,
rotation
right, if
of
you
your
radiate or deviate your wrist, take your thumb and kind of take it back to your bicep, what that's going to do is it's going to generate, as you pull through the swing, it's going to generate bat speed,
yep.
where the head of the bat is traveling at a faster speed than you otherwise would. And bat speed in baseball is a good thing because it's going to make the ball go farther and harder, right?
Yep.
And but something that, I mean, I played baseball since I could ever remember being able to run or walk. I mean, that's just how it was, but I'd never heard of this. Never been taught to me. All the coaches I've had and everything, all the leagues I played
Right.
in, no one had ever told me that. And so the value of certain coaches at certain points in your life is invaluable to the rate of success. We talk about business and we talk about, if you do look at the statistics, that SMBs in the SMB world, 96% of them fell
Yeah.
within 5 years.
Right. Which is
So if
significant.
if you know 100, only four of them on average is going to be around
Right.
within 5 years of when they started. That is horrible.
Yeah.
Like
Very much so.
when would you ever accept a 4% success
In
rate?
baseball,
No
right? In
one would.
baseball. But
You,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And so very similarly, yeah, as we look at our lives, like, hey, what coaches do is they allow us to expedite what you
Yes.
would learn in 3 years of quote school of hard knocks. That 3 years can be 2 months, right? And why wouldn't you? Oh, I had to pay for it. You had
Right.
to pay to expedite something from 3 years to 2 months. Okay, great. How can I do that more? Right. I mean,
Yes. Usually that's the
and
outcome that we're looking for.
yeah. And so yeah, my comment in regards to that is, yeah, would you compete without a coach? Would you go to battle in
Right.
business without a coach? Well, if you do, you're jeopardizing time,
You're at
you know,
risk.
and your rate of return, right? I mean, will you be successful? Yeah, there's a 4% statistic probability that you will, but you're also going to lose on a ton of time.
Yeah.
And you'll know it. You'll know it. When you sit down with a coach, you'll know, hey, dang, I didn't know that. I didn't know this. And you're
Right.
changing within days, within weeks,
Right. Yep.
your mindset and your actions and things like that. And I know that that'll lead into our 95%, subconscious stuff. I know that's where you're going, but
Yeah.
yes, that would be how I would answer that.
Yeah, definitely. I actually SCORE is a mentor group in America, and I actually reached out and I had someone reply yesterday to me to try a different approach. So instead of having a fitness business coach type thing, which I've had a couple now, and I can see the patterns of behavior now. I couldn't a year ago, but now I see, okay, these are the things that we have to do. Okay. And they all talk the same language and the same approaches basically. It's like, all right, let's look at it a different way. How do I manage my business and my life and my time differently, and going from someone else that has successfully navigated through business in a different field, and look at it through marketing and PR and branding lens. And so that'll be interesting. First call is on Friday to talk with Lori and see what we can do together as a shift in uh, competing, because that's what I'm doing. I'm competing against every other guy that is a coach that wants to get six pack for someone or whatever. So,
Right.
so all right, what's my advantage? What's my leverage? And so let's go into that 95% rule for everyone listening. What's the subconscious decisions 95% and why it's necessary to be successful here?
You have to understand a little bit of the backstory here. So,
Okay.
one of the, and not one, the most acclaimed book on quote success is written by Napoleon Hill, and it is called Think and Grow Rich.
Yep.
Most people have heard of it. They've
Hmm.
read portions of it. It's not the easiest read, but you'll learn about the Fords and the Rockefellers and all these other different people
Right.
as he spent decades studying them and behaviors and everything. I've always admired the fact that the first word in the title of that book is think. And so when you understand that his whole aspect is thought, right? It's not grow rich and think, it's think and grow rich.
Right.
And there's a gentleman, his name is John Mitchell. I use his some of his work in my own to help this with this aspect of mindset. And John Mitchell, he's currently down at the University of Texas, and he has a program called Think It, Be It.
Yeah.
And he wrote a book called The Missing Secret, which is a play off of Think and Grow Rich, because Napoleon Hill, he did all these studies and he wrote about the power of that thought, but never really gave how do you control that thought or how do you develop that thought. And John took that and kind of studied more and went, and now that we're, I don't know, however many years past the time that Napoleon wrote his stuff, and science has proven a lot of things since then.
Yep.
And part of that is the 95% rule. And the 95%, what it is 95% of all the decisions you make in your life are subconscious. When you woke up this
Yep.
morning, did you think about grabbing your toothbrush and brushing your teeth? Did you think about whether it was the right leg or the left leg that went first into your pants? Did you think about
Yes.
you don't
Real quick though, you need to make sure that you don't fall into the trap of sock, shoe, sock, shoe. That's yeah, your day's way off then. Okay. Randomly that came up on a card that my daughter and I were playing the other day, and it just references just a bunch of funny things. But yes, don't do that. Sock, sock, shoe, shoe. Be normal, people. Sorry, I had to
but
put that one
but
in
but
there.
but no, that I mean you're spot on. We do so much subconsciously that as we're doing those tasks, as our body
Right.
is making those decisions, usually our conscious is thinking about something else, right? It's
Right.
we
Oh
eat and
yeah.
we do all these things, just so much subconscious. I didn't realize, me personally, I didn't realize that it was that much. Like I knew that subconscious was responsible for certain things, but I would have never
Right.
answered saying, yeah, it's responsible for 95%. And so I think of it as, okay, let's just go, since we've been on this athletic run. If
Yeah.
our body is made up of a bunch of these muscles, but one muscle was responsible for 95% of all of our movement and strength and everything, what would you do for that muscle? You would train it, you would
Right.
stretch it, you would take care of it, you would ice it when it needs ice, you would heat it when it needs heat. You would tend to that muscle. Why? Because it's responsible for 95% of your motion and agility and everything else like that.
Right.
So, similarly, if our subconscious is responsible for 95% of our actions, and we know that thought comes before action, well, how do you then modify slash train your subconscious? And that's the whole premise of it is, okay, how do we start doing this? And one thing that I've learned in doing this, because once I started doing it myself, I started seeing effects literally within the first couple of weeks. You go back to habits, right? How long does it take to create a habit? Well, 21
Right.
days, or what. We all know these things,
Right. Well,
but
we
but
always throw this out there. Habits can happen immediately. They don't have to be 21 days. And that's a
they
fallacy that a lot of people fall into. The worst classic example I do, you've been smoking for 20 years, going to the lung doctor and to save cancer. Your three choices: just smoke it out, just play the game of I'm going to start counting how many days I'm a non-smoker and then start smoking, or quit cold turkey. And that's a new habit and behavior. So you have the power, just listening, people listening, you have the power to change immediately. You don't have to have this, you don't have to give yourself 21 days for anything. You can change right now. And that's the process of thinking and then changing behavior.
100%. You can't get to day to 21 if you don't hit day one, right? So making those changes, and the crux of this is understanding, in order to train, our subconscious is very trusting. And when I say trusting, if you think about it, we use this
Sure.
term term brainwash, right? When you're told to look at a certain color, like, if you tell your brain, hey, I'm going to look around the room, I want you to look around the room and find all the red things.
Right. Right.
And if you look around the room,
Here's
your mind,
red real quick. And
there's
up
red
there in
up in the ceiling. I see that.
the
Yep.
ceiling there's a couple red ones.
And what indefinitely happens? You look around, and that kind of maroon one, you're going to start calling red. And that one, these ones that are not quite red, but they're close
Mhm.
to red, you're
Yeah.
just going to start
Yep.
calling them red because you're telling yourself that those are red.
Right.
Very similarly, our subconscious does the same. We started this segment off with about, the power of positivity, right?
Right.
When we're telling ourselves how these things goes. And professional athletes, I love the parallel between entrepreneurship and professional athletes. when
Yes.
when when you look at true professional athletes, I like football, so I'm just going to go retiree Tom Brady, right?
Yep.
Tom Brady would go out to the field hours before the game, and sometimes he'd just sit there. He'd just sit on the bench, and he's looking out at the field, got little headphones on, and he is just thinking. What's he doing? He's playing the game in his mind.
Yep.
He's studied the tapes. He knows this. Well, this person does this, then I do this. This person does that, then I do this. This is how I beat this. This is how I beat that. That's how I
Preparation.
react to here. They're visualizing this in their head. What they're really doing is a form of training their subconscious.
Right.
Because when you snap that ball and you've only got 3 seconds before that 327 pounder is
Yeah.
on top of you, you
It's gonna
your
hurt.
your conscious needs help from the subconscious.
Right. Right.
It
Right.
needs that reaction stuff. But if you train it, and very similarly, that's the concept behind this. And John has a great he calls it the 12-minute routine, where literally you read through, you're training your subconscious about various aspects of your life, and you read through these, and we reevaluate them every 3 months, every quarter. And as we do this, I have noticed myself, I've started change. I start thinking differently. And that's the
Right.
whole premise: is think and grow.
Right.
Think and grow. Thought before growth. It always starts with a thought. A behavior always starts with a thought. A habit always starts with a thought. So how you're training your thought is absolutely critical to whether or not you're going to be moderately successful, not successful at all, ultra successful in whatever endeavor you're going to do. I mean, it played enough of an impact on me that I turned to my wife and I said, "You're going to do this." And she said, "What is it?" And she started doing it, and she started seeing the benefits. And then I took it to my daughter, same one. And we started doing it right before her, national competition. And it helps. It has an effect on us
Right.
if we learn how to own our mindset.
Yeah. And it goes back to some of the hunting patterns that we talked about. These are patterns of behavior Professionals and elites study, they prepare, they refine, they review, they go through these things to eliminate challenges and unforeseen circumstances and situations and put themselves in the best position to allow as much success as they can handle. Decision fatigue isn't an issue then if you have patterns of behavior. I On episode 61, I had an episode where I talked literally beating decision fatigue when it comes to eating without thinking. So you can just these patterns behaviors around being an active, healthy adult and keeping your body weight the same consistently, plus or minus a couple pounds, but that it's gonna people your weight's gonna fluctuate up and down. The 5 pound weight range is a great weight range for you to stay in and be comfortable. And if it gets to the high end, then we need to knock it off, so to speak, and get back to the habits and behaviors. But thinking about food should not, or anything that we're talking about should not be full of lots of extra decisions or lots of extra steps. And these are, again, going back to habits that are we see success on a regular basis from doing these things. And you're right,
Yeah.
95% everything comes from our brain, and we think and then we act. Sometimes when we act and then think, it doesn't. We need to put our foot in our mouth a couple times when we do it that way. Not a good situation there.
No.
So one more story of success, going into the actual own your revenue piece of you working with someone that you've been able to transcend from decide that I want to compete. And yes, you do need a coach and then a mentor, someone to help guide you and keep you on the path, because shiny object syndrome and attention and all this stuff is a significant challenge these days, especially with AI. It is moving at lightning speed and you can't even keep up. And a lot of, I read something where a lot of major teams are struggling to just keep up with the rate of change. So they are settling into behavior patterns and waiting a certain amount of time to then change things up again. Because if you're constantly changing, you're just in this rough storm of the waves just tossing left and right. And it's what it feels like the tech industry and the AI and everything is doing. So let's go over a story of owning your revenue that you've had with someone who's really been successful, and showcase some of your capacities.
Absolutely. So I built the Own Your Revenue. That's what I call it. That's the title of it, Own Your Revenue. And the premise of it is, in business, it's hard to tell which levers are going to get a 2x, 3x, 5x growth with proper margins. I'm going to
Right.
emphasize that, with proper
Yes.
margins. And so what ends up happening is you scale, but you end up scaling more chaos than profit.
Yep.
And so the Own Your Revenue process is designed to tactically hunt the revenue patterns that will pull the right levers so that you add 7, 8 figure growth in the next 6 to 12 months while maintaining those margins or increasing them as
Right.
well.
Because those margins are go beyond just monetarily, but there's a lot of time, a lot of stress, a lot of impact in your personal relationships, that I just want to call out, that so somebody listening might not be thinking about. They just think the monetary of, like, I spend this much and I make this much. No, no, no. You do want that to work, but you spend this much and you have a fruitful life in its entirety as well.
I use the term revenue, one, because yes, it's business
Right.
focused,
It's
but
totally
revenue is the blood to a business. So if we think of our blood inside of our bodies, it's
right.
more than just a red liquid, right? There's so many different nutrients and what goes on with
Right.
cells and regeneration. And, there's so many
Mhm.
different aspects, and the bone marrows and the this and the oxygens and there's so many different things that affect the blood, but we got to call it something. So in this
Right.
case,
This red substance is
you
blood.
know, own your revenue is, yes, everything that's combined. And, we've already talked about one, which is the mindset.
Right.
But really, as I traveled the world, I worked in 15 different countries doing audits and evaluations on businesses. That's how I got good at this, is
Yeah,
because I would
right.
go in, whether it's 4 days or 4 weeks, I would be spending evaluating and auditing
All
businesses.
day, right?
And so,
Every nook
but
and cranny, every stone unturned and uncovered, and
regardless of the skill levels, the country I was in, their education levels, it didn't matter. We were hunting. I was
yeah,
hunting what ultimately at the time I didn't really know it, but yes, I was
right,
hunting for the patterns. I was hunting for the right levers. So that's why I developed this program. That's why I built the app. That's why I'm building the things that I have, because as entrepreneurs, again, it's hard to tell which levers are going to have the 2x, 3x, 5x with proper margin effect on our business. So,
right.
being able to quantify it, being able to pull it out, being able to see it on a dashboard and say, like, oh, holy cow, this has that effect and this has that effect. Oh, I've divided my company now into these 7 categories. I call it PEP Slim: people, equipment, process, strategy, leadership, inventory, money.
Right,
Now that I'm starting to see my business, I talked about that radial deviation. I had no clue what it was until somebody came and told me what it was, right?
right.
When someone comes to you, when a coach comes to you and tells you things that you don't know, that's a good thing. That
Yeah,
that means you have permission to improve. You have
yep.
permission to grow and expand. Without it, you're just going to be kind of riding that wave. So, absolutely, that's why I developed this process. And so, one of the things, as you were talking about, one of the examples, and I have a gentleman. I help anywhere from the solopreneurs, as we mentioned with the retired NFL guy. I've got companies that are 150 employees or so before they go up to that quote corporate level,
Right.
and they've got a VP for everything that they want. But
Right.
in this case, this particular owner, about 100 employees, they do about $40 million. They've been around for 25 years, and we were having this conversation, and he had a couple of banger years where just the luck and everything was hitting right, and then there's been a couple of years of struggle.
Right.
Margins haven't been there. In fact,
I
they've
feel
been
that. The
negative.
marketplace shifted and
You
I'm
know,
I'm experiencing growth, growing pains
yeah.
myself.
And how do you address that? How do you figure that? Well, what was working then isn't working now, but there's no real clear way to see, right?
Okay.
There's no real clear way to see. I love videos, especially with athletes, because you can take a video and say, "Oh, hey, look, you see this play? You see where you did this, where you did this? Like, you shouldn't
Right.
do that. You should do this." Video has been wonderful. In essence, that's what kind of the Own Your Revenue is designed as. Here's your video of yourself. Let's look at this. Let's look at that. Let's look at this. Let's go on the hunt. I'm going to ask very poignant questions. They might be uncomfortable. In fact, they will be uncomfortable. So
Yeah. Yeah.
let's
That's
get
where
over
growth happens.
let's get over it, because we know that's where the growth is going to happen. So yeah, you want to retire in 3-4 years and you want to sell the business? Great. You can't sell it now because of these reasons. Okay, let's fix them.
You'll get
Right.
way less than you want from it if you sell it now.
And to that point, if you've got the right coach on board to help you, they're going to help you do those things. And so one of the exercises that I do with the leadership team inside a business is I do have a look at their time, right? And I'm not a time Nazi per se. Like, I'm not going to go through it just,
Right.
hey, every little tiny bit, but it is a critical factor as to what you're
Productivity.
doing. And so we popped up.
Huge.
One of the things that I asked him in the very beginning, I said, all right, if I were to hire you, let's just say I want you this afternoon for 2 hours, what would you charge me for those 2 hours? Immaterial what we're going to talk about. You're the CEO, you're the subject matter expert, whatever it is. I'm going to hire you for 2 hours. What would you charge me? Well, $500 an hour. Okay, great. No problem. Okay, $1,000, boom.
It doesn't matter because I know we talked about, I know where we're going. So everyone listen in, like, to turn it up a little bit right now. Ryan really points things out here real good.
And so I've got this little worksheet that I've developed, and we start going down it, and we say, okay, you say you're worth $500 an hour. Great, no problem, no argument. what do you do, on an average week? And so we go through, and this is the activity that you do. You do estimating. And, well, what do you do when you're estimating? Well, I'm drafting up proposals and all this other kind of stuff. Okay, well, that's one activity. How much do you do that? Well, I spend 10 hours a week doing that. Okay, great. And then, we just go down the list. And, by the time we get to the bottom, almost every time, with founders, with leadership teams, I'm usually knocking on the door of anywhere from 60 to 70 hours a week, usually.
Yep. Right.
Sometimes I'll get mid to high 50s, but it's never 40. Like,
Right.
I don't see that, right?
I don't work 40, I don't think. I feel like I'm always working.
And that's the thing. And so as we sit here, and then what I do after that is I will then pop up and say, all right, if you, let's just pretend you're going to go away and you have to hire somebody to do that first line, that estimating line. If you were to hire somebody to do it, how much would you pay per hour for someone to do that? And, oh, well, that'd be worth $40 an hour or $60, whatever it is. And we just go down the line. All the items are the things that they do, and we
Right.
extrapolate that. And then, so in this particular case, we had, I want to say it was 73 hours that this gentleman works on average. I mean, each week just varies, but on average, works 73 hours a week. Okay. Well, it's a 24/7 operation. They're always going, they're always on. So, it's not a 9 to 5 typical. And so, as I ran the calculations, I just added up all the sums of what he would pay someone else to do those jobs, right? Just added those up and said, okay, $71. And boom, if you pay all that money, hey, you're working for $127 an hour. And he just froze. And
Yeah.
he's sitting there looking at it, and he's like, this is the point. I actually love this point, because most of the time, if you picture the old cartoons where they would have that green color face where the guy's just wanting to vomit,
Yes, yes.
like this is that kind of
Right. Yeah.
realization.
And
Like,
you totally walk them down and reveal it to them, right?
I would charge out $500 an hour. That's my
Yep.
value. That's where I should be. But yet I'm working for $127 an hour. Oh gosh.
Right.
And so that's one realization. And then I go, okay, in an ideal world, how much time would you want to spend on estimating? You're spending 10. How much would you want to spend? Oh, I'd want to spend 5. I only want to be reviewing it, not writing them. Okay, great. And you just go down the list. This is
Right.
what you're doing. What would you want that to be? And we just go down it. One thing that almost always is the case is I get down to the bottom. Very few, in fact, I'm trying to remember if I've had a single one, maybe one entrepreneur that has told me one of their line item activities is think big, or think like a CEO, or, you know, uh, plan the future of the company, whatever it is, anything to that tone. I've never had anyone tell me that's what they do, even though it's their responsibility, it's their company, they're the only ones that can do that.
Yep.
No one has told me, out of all the 71 hours and 65 hours and 68 and
They have an hour
63s
in
and
there
70,
to
no
think.
no one has said that's what I do in my business. I find that very intriguing as a pattern, right? The more and more businesses
Yep.
I work with, that's not something that they're doing. And I said, hey, if you were to do this, what would be the value of it? And he's like, I don't know. I said, well, you charge out $500 an hour. Surely it'd be worth more. And so I usually end up putting 1,000 plus, right?
Right, right,
Because
right,
it's infinite worth, and only the CEO can do that. Only the founder, only the
right.
the lead guy can do that. But we get down to the point, and we take those visions, what he envisions his time being for each of those activities, and voila, he pops up and there's 53 hours a week. I said, so you just saved yourself 21 hours a week. I said, how's that going to make your wife feel? How's that going to make your daughter feel? How's that going to
Right.
make you feel? I mean,
Yeah, but that's a day. So that's literally a day of
I,
time back in
I
your
mean,
life.
really, and so you start thinking differently. And to his credit, he has made I mean, this was I don't know. I think we did our first one back in October. And I reevaluate this time to say, hey, we recognized it. We wanted to make the shift. Are we actually making the shift? Right.
Right.
And so sure enough, he's going through, I call it ADD, automate, delegate, delete. Right. So let's
Right.
go through this.
Yep.
Can we automate any
Yep.
of this? Yes, do it. Can we delete and delegate it? Yes, delegate it. Can we delete it? Yes, delete it. Right.
Yep.
And
I
and
have
as
a strong fear that that's exactly what's gonna happen with Lori. She's like, "Hey, you're doing too much."
it,
I know I am. I know I am. I'm doing everything.
yeah. And so when you start to own things, which there's a big word, be accountable, right? Be
Yeah.
accountable for
Oh,
your
totally.
revenue, be accountable for your mindset, be
Yeah.
accountable for your relationship, be accountable for your time,
Yep.
be accountable to yourself for the things that you have control over.
Right. Yep.
And as you do that, as you start driving towards those things, then it's inevitable. The results will follow.
Yeah.
The people will follow. You know, one of the things I think we talked a little bit, or maybe it was another podcast, we talked a little bit about the difference between a leader and a manager, right?
Yeah.
Leaders, you can't push a rope. You can't do it. So you can only pull people to where you're wanting them to go. You can only
Right.
bring them by
Right.
pulling them, not pushing them.
No.
So,
Yeah. Pushing never works. Ask
yep.
your kids or ask your wife.
Show them, right? You know, show them by your example, show them by
Right.
what you're doing, show
Right.
them by letting them. And when you do those things, when you develop those types of habits and routines and things within your business, you start to create a revenue culture. That's what I call it. You start to develop a revenue culture where everybody is accountable for the success of the business, for maintaining. Hey,
Right.
just like our blood, if you're the lungs, your job is to get oxygen to the blood.
Yep.
Well, if you're the stomach, your livers, and there's different aspects of our body that are responsible to support the blood in different ways.
Right.
Our businesses are no different. Our people, our teams, they all have different ways that they support the revenue. Some of them on the top line, some of them on the bottom line, meaning, hey, how do you how do you produce, how do you fulfill the work and your expenses? And there's so many different ways, but being able to look at holistically your company, to own your revenue, to build that revenue culture is, I mean, that's why we see the success we do in 6 to 12 months and not 3 to 4 years.
Right. Just pulling yourself toward the future of the experience that you want to have. I have that with the Call to Rise guys. Any person I've ever worked with that is successful already knows what to do. They're just not doing it. And then we have to find these patterns of behaviors, shift them into something that is actually productive with their time, their energy around what they eat, how they move their bodies, how they fit it into the busyness of their everyday. Even I talk a ton about time management or stress management because those things take away from and challenge the overall outcome. And when I look back at my pretty good track record, episode 60, I had three guys, 30 pounds, 30 pounds, 38 pounds in 100 days. They lost 98 pounds between the three of them. And it was accountability. And it was just following through on doing the things that they need to do to be in their best, healthiest self. So this resonates significantly with me and should
We
with the people we're listening in.
we talk about that number. I have a fear. I mean, my hope is, hey, when I saw that 96% number where 4% only survive, I'm like, how do we make 4% 5%? Right?
Right.
I'm not trying to save all of them, but if I can save one, let's do one, right?
Right.
And
Right.
John Mitchell, the guy we were talking about, this mine, his study shows 2%. He says only 2%, even if you know all this stuff about subconscious and how to train it and all this kind of stuff, he says only 2% will actually do something about it.
Right.
And so, me personally, I have this fear. I'm like, well, if only 2% are willing to change their stuff, then is 4% ever going to become 5%? I don't know. But there's somebody here, like you said, there's somebody listening that's saying, all right, how do I become that 2%? I
Right.
want to be that 2% or that 4% in business. I want to make sure that I have this success and move on. And absolutely 100% agreed.
Yep. Yep. This is so good. So, proper expectations, 95% of your subconscious is doing the heavy lifting of everything, and we need to make sure that we are paying attention to those around us, the way that we do think and the lens that we view it from, a positive, optimistic, opportunity seeking approach is going to be the ultimate outcome that's going to move you in the direction in the first place to creating the outcomes that you want, and understanding the patterns of behaviors not only in who is successful but then in your own patterns of behavior. Do you get up and do you think this way, or do you take these actions, or do you do this stuff in your brain, and do you have time that allows yourself just to think, and you're not just distracting by scrolling or checking your email 1,000 times or whatever. And these are things that develop success across the board. Sure, we want success in business, but you need to be successful as a person in a wholehearted way. And that's one of the reasons why I brought Ryan on, because he jumped into mindsets like, ooh, we haven't really spoken tons on mindset. I've done a little bit, of course, but to the degree and depth that we did today is just fantastic. So I hope that a lot of people listening in have enjoyed this conversation. And with that, Ryan, where do we find you? What goodies do we have to share with our listeners?
Absolutely. We've got a goodie that we're in the process of launching, but there will be a free trial coming we're in the process of building it right now. So it's almost ready to launch. Hopefully by the time this episode releases, it's available, but really a free trial, if you will, into the Own Your Revenue dashboard for your business. So to step into that, my company, 537BD or business development, you can go to the website, 537bd.com. And that's where all the links and everything are in there, as well as, of course, on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn. My calendar's there. So it's really not that hard. Like I said, would you
Right.
compete without a coach? Are you going to play the game of entrepreneurship without a mentor? I mean, my calendar's right there. It takes 3 seconds
Yeah, it wasn't hard to get a hold of you,
to
right?
click that button and to
Yep.
say, hey, yeah, tell me more. Let's have that conversation. How I can do, instead of 3 years, let's do it the next 6 to 12 months. Great, let's
Right.
do it.
Right. That's excellent. And hopefully you've heard that has a sheer amount of expertise here to be able to back it up and leverage this. So you can check him out in those places in the show notes. They will be there. The biggest takeaway today for me is the mindset of looking through the lens of positivity, of understanding that the way that you think ultimately shapes the experience that we are having. And when we have proper expectations to align with the experiences that we are having, then life can be really fulfilling and really happy and really exciting. And you're not walking around sad and disappointed. Right now, it's a cloudy day out, but the sun is still outside because it is bright, or you wouldn't be able to see my face because I'm in my barn now. And I understand that there's clouds, but that doesn't mean that the sun's out and I should think differently or otherwise, because that would not be that doesn't work for me. I want the sun is shining. That's the type of lens I like to view life through. So thank you so much for listening in, Ryan. Thanks so much for your time today, dropping gold nuggets every which way. I hope people took notes and can take away this mindset shift that we taught. Own your mindset to ultimately own your revenue. Well, thank you so much, everyone, and off we go. All right.